Welcome, friends. Welcome back to Sunday Morning in the Old Cookbook Show. This is the first Sunday Morning Old Cookbook Show that I have shot since the beginning of February. Everything that you've seen up to this point was shot very early. And since then, the entire world has changed. Our world is upside down. People are being forced inside, lockdowns, quarantines, social distancing, panic buying at the grocery stores. People are out of work. Everything has changed, making this old cookbook show and the Depression-era recipes probably more relevant than ever. And up until this point, I have leaned heavily on baking recipes because a lot of the old cookbooks are mostly about baking. People knew how to manage their household for savory dishes. They had the dishes, they made 4 or 5 different things and over and over and over and over again, and they didn't end up in cookbooks. So today we're going to make a cake. We're going to make an emergency cake from the First Christian Church Friendship Cookbook. This was published in 1930 in Santa Monica, California. And it's an emergency cake, and it is a very simple cake. And I'm making it today because as I go through these other cookbooks from the Great Depression, I realize I don't have any of the ingredients in my house. And they're going to be difficult to get at the grocery store because we're not allowed outside. You go to the grocery store and they're not stocked very well at this point. There was a big run on stuff. So I'm going to have to go through these cookbooks and find things that I can make. And the other thing that is very difficult about the recipes or the savory recipes in this cookbook and all of the cookbooks that I have from the Great Depression is that the recipes aren't relevant today. The whole food economy has changed in the 90-some years that have gone past. So let's start this and we'll talk about that as we're going on. So this friendship cake, this emergency cake, is a very simple cake, and I can see the person who wrote it down, Mrs. Gail Hopkins, panicking because the pastor from her church is coming over and she's got to make something really quickly to serve with coffee when he arrives. So in this bowl I have flour, and to it I'm going to add salt and baking powder. Pretty standard. It then asks for white sugar, and the whole idea is that you're supposed to put this into a mixer, and then we're going to add the fat, the egg, and the milk. Goes against everything I've ever learned about mixing a cake, but we're going to see how this works out and how it goes. I'm just going to give the dry ingredients a really good mix here in the bowl first. The recipe calls for shortening, but you know, the way things are right now, I didn't have enough shortening, so I'm going to do a mixture of shortening and butter. When times are tough, you make do, and you make substitutions, and you see what happens and how it works out. I don't foresee any trouble. I need about 2/3 of a cup of milk, so let's mix that out. Now, into the mixer goes the milk, fat, and an egg. Now it says to beat well for 2 to 3 minutes. And for everybody screaming that I'm cheating because I'm using a stand mixer, I'm not. KitchenAid was introduced in 1919. So by this point, 1930, they'd been on the market for 11 years, and they were everywhere. This particular model, this particular shape didn't come out for another 2 or 3 years, but people did have KitchenAid mixers in their kitchen. So we're going to put this on and we're going to let it mix. And we're going to see what happens. The vanilla goes in last. But back to the savory recipes. People's perception of what happened in the Great Depression and what actually happened are often completely separate. And our perception of what happened is often colored by the stories that we were told by our parents or grandparents, great-grandparents, family lore. In this book, there are a lot of recipes that use things that, you know, we would consider today to be incredibly expensive. And in the budget section at the front, they budget $4 a week per person in your family. And for a family of 4, they're budgeting 8 pounds of meat a week. It's quite a bit of meat, you know, when you think about it. But a lot of that meat is things like oysters and crab and lobster, things that today we would think of as expensive meats. There are some ground beef, but there's a lot of veal. There is some pork. there's not a lot of chicken. Chicken wasn't something that was, completely, it wasn't I hate to say this, it wasn't mass produced for cooking. Chickens were mostly raised for eggs. And once the hens had reached the end of their lives, they were destined for a soup pot. But chicken wasn't grown for chicken's sake, really, in any great quantity until after World War II. So there's not a lot of chicken recipes in here. So as I go through, I need to find things that kind of fit what we're going through today. And a lot of what is in here is also about cooking something on Sunday and then taking the leftovers and cooking them into something else on Wednesday, because you've eaten leftovers Monday and Tuesday, and by Wednesday you're tired of the leftovers, and so you want to transform it into something else. And I think that is going to take a complete transformation in the way that we look at cooking if we tumble farther down this path. I'm not trying to panic anybody. It really just is the reality of where we stand today. And it's different than what happened here in 1930, but it's still a bit of a problem. Now this cake gives me a few more baking instructions that I'm used to. It's good, plain white cake. It's going to be a nice plain white cake. 350 degrees for 20 minutes. It doesn't say what size pan, so I'm looking at this batter and thinking 7 by 7 is going to be fine. I think an 8 by 8 or a 9 by 9 would be way too big and the cake would be too thin. So let's get the batter in here and get it in the oven. Just smooth it out as best I can into the corners. I put a parchment sling in just to make sure I can get it out of the pan. Emergency cake.
Someone is going to need a cake in the next few weeks.
In an emergency, and this is an emergency. So,
because not just the usual someone's coming for dinner emergency, someone's going to have a birthday.
Yes. And you're not gonna have much in the cupboard, and this pretty much covers it because you don't need much. And there were a couple things that I didn't have. Well, I didn't have enough fat.
Oh.
It calls for shortening. I didn't have enough shortening, so I put in half shortening, half butter.
Okay, that works.
But the texture looks great.
Mm-hmm. It's got a nice golden color. It's nice and moist. Tastes like white cake. Mm-hmm. So throw on some icing or throw on some chocolate chips on top. Whatever you want. Make it your own.
There's a plain white vanilla cake. Mm-hmm. Texture's amazing. The outside is great. You could dress it up.
You can decorate it with whatever you want, whatever your occasion might be.
Yeah, bake it in 2 smaller round tins and make a layer cake and put frosting on it.
Yeah.
And make it something
so
really
many
special.
options. So many options, right? How you decorate a basic cake is really what makes it. Without making it like jumbo, super thick icing that you can't actually eat.
But the texture is amazing. I was kind of surprised because I was afraid when I just dumped everything into the mixer without creaming the butter and the sugar together first.
Really?
Yeah, everything you just dump everything in a bowl and you mix it.
That makes it even better.
Makes it even easier. Yeah. So
So Mrs. Hopkins has the original emergency dump cake?
Mm-hmm.
Ha-ha.
Mm-hmm. Completely.
She invented it first, maybe.
So thanks for stopping by. Stay safe, stay healthy.
And remember to celebrate.
Yep. See you again soon.